Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're launching into a really deep investigation of a contemporary figure who's really, well, shaken up the modern landscape of Thai Buddhism, Phra Ajahn Kukrit Sotthiphalo. It's quite a story, actually. It's one of, let's say, radical commitment, textual fundamentalism.
And that fascinating intersection, isn't it, between the very disciplined world of military command
Yeah.
and the equally rigorous path of spiritual awakening.
Exactly.
It really is a narrative defined by contrast, but also by a kind of intense clarity. Well, our mission for you today is to really meticulously unpack his background, which is highly unusual, professionally speaking.
Yeah, you mentioned the military aspect.
Right, a career that took him all the way to the rank of major in the Royal Thai Army. We need to look at that, the rapid, almost engineered establishment of his temple, Wat Nappapong.
And critically, right, the teaching method he champions, the one that's distinctive, powerful, and sometimes, well, fiercely
The
controversial.
Buddhawajana, that's
Yeah.
the core.
Buddhawajana. It's the engine of his influence, isn't it? And it sounds almost beautifully simple in concept, but it's radical in how it's applied.
Extremely radical.
It's this exclusive focus on the direct words of the Buddha, found only within the earliest scriptural collection, the Tripitaka. It's a deliberate, very systematic attempt to strip away, 2 millennia of historical and scholastic interpretation.
Pretty much. You could almost think of it as like a spiritual restoration project.
Ah, okay.
The aim is to remove all the patina, all the later additions, to try and see the original teaching, supposedly pure and unfiltered.
Which provides that clarity you mentioned.
Immediate clarity, yes. But, and this is key, it also places him in direct opposition to a lot of established institutional teaching.
Okay, let's unpack this then, because I think to truly appreciate the almost surgical precision of this Buddhawajana movement, we really have to start not in the quiet monastery,
No, not at all.
but amidst the rigorous discipline of Bangkok's military institutions.
Absolutely. That's the bedrock. The man who would become Phra Ajahn Kukrit, he started life as Kukrit Sotthiphalo,
Right.
born January 18th, 2506 BE. That's 1963 in the Western calendar, at Chulachomklao Hospital, right in the heart of Bangkok. And his early life, it seems, was immediately set on a path of, intellectual and physical rigor.
And that path began, as you said, not just anywhere, but with entry into the highly competitive, extremely disciplined Armed Forces Preparatory School. And this isn't just like standard high school, right? This place is designed specifically to forge future leaders.
Instilling that acute sense of order, structure, chain of command, right from a young age.
The focus there was really on engineering a precise mind, wasn't it?
It seems so. And he moved directly from that preparatory school to the prestigious Chulachomklao Royal Military Academy. He was part of Class 33.
And his specialty.
Mechanical engineering. Now think about that for a moment. The training there is focused on diagnosing system faults, calculating efficiency, ensuring complex physical structures operate without redundancy, without deviation. It's very precise.
And he didn't stop there, academically speaking. He kept going, earned a master's degree.
In political science, no less, from Chulachomklao University.
So you've got this combination: engineering precision, political insight into how institutions work, and this ingrained military structure. It feels like the perfect blueprint, almost, for the meticulous approach he'd later apply to religious texts.
It really does paint a picture. And this wasn't just schooling. It was a serious, demanding career. He dedicated years to the armed forces.
Reaching the rank of major, you said?
Major, yes. Phan Tri in Thai. That's a position requiring significant command responsibility, logistical skill, strategic oversight. It's serious stuff.
But underneath the uniform, something else was growing.
Exactly. The seeds of a different path had already been sown, much earlier, actually.
Which is fascinating, because the foundation for his spiritual commitment wasn't some, dramatic midlife crisis or anything.
Well, not all.
It was planted when he was basically a boy, still in his first year of that tough preparatory school.
That's right. The sources point to his mother introducing him to monastic life very early on. She took him for a summer ordination, essentially a seasonal retreat at Wat Nappapong in Ubon Ratchathani province.
And that's a significant place, Wat Nappapong.
Hugely significant. It's the renowned forest monastery established by the very revered master Luang Por Chah Subhatto.
Right, the forest tradition. Big emphasis on asceticism, solitary practice, direct experience of the Dharma.
Must have been an immense contrast to the structure of military school.
Absolutely. Yet it offered its own kind of profound discipline, I imagine.
And the inspiration, it seems, was immediate, and it lasted. because this commitment was revisited and really solidified years later while he was navigating the very demanding environment of the military academy itself.
Okay, now here's where it gets really interesting for me. He goes back to Wat Nappapong for a second ordination while he's still in his 4th year at the military academy.
That's correct.
And it's during that retreat that he makes this truly profound, very specific vow. He resolves to dedicate only 10 more years to lay life to his military career.
And
Permanent monkhood. Full stop.
that decision, it just reflects an astonishing degree of focused commitment, doesn't it? Imagine signing up for a high-stakes military career, but with a hard, self-imposed 10-year expiration date already penciled in.
Dedicating that time only to fulfilling lay duties before making the complete switch.
He treated his spiritual calling not like some gentle retirement plan down the road, but almost like another mandatory service commitment he had to fulfill.
Yeah. And that military training, it becomes crucial context here, doesn't it?
Absolutely crucial.
His background demanded discipline, precise execution, the ability to sort of, discern essential components from non-essential variables.
A strict adherence to the objective.
Right. So when you apply that really rigorous framework, the engineer's eye for efficiency, to the pursuit of enlightenment, what do you end up with?
Well, you get the elimination of redundancy, perhaps. The military path could be seen as preparing him perfectly for the spiritual path by fostering this habit of going straight to the core command, the core instruction.
Okay, I see the connection.
If you look at spiritual texts as a set of instructions, maybe the engineering mind seeks the most efficient, the least obstructed route to the desired result.
And that framework, applied later to the Tripitaka,
Becomes the rationale for Buddhawajana, the rejection of centuries of commentary that, perhaps from his perspective, however well-meaning, were ultimately distracting.
He didn't just want to be a monk. It sounds like he treated his vow like executing a strategic mission.
Exactly. And that dedication ensures that the teaching movement he eventually spearheaded carries the weight of that incredibly focused commitment.
And he executed that strategic mission, that vow, precisely on time.
He did. His official permanent ordination into the monkhood took place in BE 2544, which is 2001 CE. Right on schedule, fulfilling that vow made a decade earlier.
Where was he ordained?
At Wat Bunyawat in Chonburi Province.
And what's crucial to note, I think, is what happened immediately after. He didn't just, settle down into a comfortable role.
No, not at all. He didn't settle down to manage a parish or take up cozy institutional roles. Straight away, he engaged in Tudong.
Tudong, that's the ascetic wandering practice.
Exactly. Often involves solitary practice in forests, remote areas. It's an intensive phase focused squarely on Padifat Dhamma, rigorous, direct spiritual practice. This wasn't about public teaching yet.
It was a period of verification, intense self-realization.
That seems to be the idea. Testing the teachings in the crucible of practice.
And this solitary, intense verification process led directly, it seems, to the establishment of the temple he's now famous for, Wat Nappapong.
It did. And the founding story itself is, again, a testament to his focused, maybe unconventional approach. It didn't start as some grand donated estate or via royal decree.
How did it start then?
It originated, believe it or not, from a piece of farmland, specifically a rice paddy field.
Really? A rice paddy?
Gifted by his mother. Initially, he used this land purely as a place for isolated, solitary meditation. It was his personal spiritual refuge, you could say, a private testing ground for his practice and realization.
But the intensity of that solitary practice must have drawn attention.
It seems so, because it rapidly transformed the site. Wat Nappapong, which is located in Klong Sib, Lam Lu Ka District, Pathum Thani Province. It was formally registered as a temple just 1 year after his permanent ordination.
Only 1 year. That sounds fast.
Extremely fast. May 2nd, BE 2545 or 2002. That speed is highly unusual in the established Thai monastic system, where registering a temple can often take years and years.
So how do you explain that speed?
We can probably connect it directly to that concept of pli kwai wai, which refers to solitary practice. When a monk's practice is perceived by the lay community as genuinely profound, intense, pure, unencumbered by the usual trappings of establishment,
It draws support.
immediate, powerful support. The community essentially saw the fruit of his singular focus and quickly mobilized the resources needed to formalize his location.
So that immediate traction suggests that his disciplined, textually focused interpretation of the Dharma was already resonating deeply, maybe with followers who were tired of established complexities.
It certainly speaks to the, well, efficiency of the majors approach, now applied to temple management. Perhaps you required a stable platform for dissemination.
And the community provided it almost instantly.
Right. That rapid move from a humble rice paddy to a formally registered temple speaks volumes about an inherent logistical capability, maybe, but also about the power of that pure textual focus to draw in immediate conviction and support.
And this stability, this base, laid the essential foundation for the revolutionary teaching method he would become internationally famous for.
A method requiring immense textual rigor and that modern logistical skill to get the message out.
Which brings us squarely to the centerpiece of Phra Ajahn Kukrit's mission, the widespread dissemination of the Dharma through this absolute uncompromising lens of Buddhawajana.
The word of the Buddha.
We've established that Buddhawajana means the word of the Buddha. Can you elaborate a bit more on why this focus is considered so radical, especially in a place like Thailand with, 2 millennia of incredibly rich Buddhist history and commentary?
Yeah, this is where we need to understand just briefly the structure of the Buddhist canon. The Tripitaka, the Pali Canon, traditionally has 3 baskets.
The Vinaya Pitaka.
The monastic rules, yes. Then the Sutta Pitaka.
The discourses, the sermons of the Buddha.
Right, and the Abhidhamma Pitaka, which is more scholastic philosophy. Though, actually, the inclusion of Abhidhamma as the direct word of the Buddha is itself a point of contention, even within traditional schools.
Okay, so where does Buddhawajana fit in?
Buddhawajana insists on using only the earliest agreed-upon sections. Essentially, the words the Buddha is believed to have actually spoken himself, the Phra Oath.
And what does that mean in practice? For the vast body of tradition that most monks and lay followers actually rely on day to day.
Well, crucially, Phra Ajahn Kukrit systematically excludes 2 major classes of subsequent texts that are absolutely central to traditional Theravada Buddhism.
Okay, what are they?
First, the Atthakatha. These are the traditional commentaries, often attributed to great ancient scholars like Buddhaghosa. They systematized, interpreted the Buddha's discourses, made them accessible, applicable across different cultures, different languages.
These commentaries are foundational, aren't they? I mean, they explain context, provide historical background, give detailed examples. Arguably, they're what allowed Buddhism to flourish culturally for centuries.
Absolutely. They're like the common law, the precedent, the case studies in a legal system. By excluding them, he's essentially rejecting the vast majority of the received scholarly tradition.
Wow. Okay, and the second class of texts?
The Dika. These are the sub-commentaries, further scholarly layers built upon the Atthakatha. So it's a really radical editorial excision of the entire scholastic framework that developed over centuries.
That analogy to constitutional law you mentioned earlier really hits home then.
It does.
It's like telling every legal professional, ignore the thousands of volumes of Supreme Court interpretations, just rely solely on the original 7 articles of the Constitution, believing any later interpretation is potentially corrupting.
It's textual originalism taken to its absolute extreme, driven by this core belief that any deviation from the original utterance risks introducing conceptual static, conceptual suffering. His goal is to remove all potential ambiguity introduced by subjective interpretation over time.
So his aim is actually highly practical then. It's not just academic purism.
Oh, absolutely practical. The goal is direct access for the practitioner. His core aim is for you, the seeker, to study, understand, and apply the Buddha's words directly, straightforwardly.
To get straight to the point.
Exactly. The ultimate purpose is that clear, unclouded understanding of the cause of suffering Hidhang took and the path to its cessation Tangdap took. If the original text is a perfect map, he basically believes the commentaries just clutter it up and confuse the directions.
Okay. But to achieve this massive dissemination project, to get that pure map out there, he couldn't just rely on, word of mouth or monks copying scrolls by hand.
No way. He had to rely heavily on modern technology and, again, that efficiency you might expect from a systems engineer.
It required a logistical command structure almost.
Almost certainly worthy of a major, yes.
Yeah.
He clearly realized that to spread this pure word effectively, he needed a modern, high-output media factory. And he became this hugely prolific producer of Dharma content.
In what forms?
All sorts. Books, CDs, videos, audio clips, a massive online presence. He essentially engineered the distribution system for Buddhawajana.
And among his major systematic projects, there are a couple that really demonstrate the scale of this effort, right?
Yes. Two stand out. First, there's the Buddhawajana 10 volumes book set. That provides a kind of structured access to the core teachings.
Okay.
But the truly monumental effort, the one that really speaks to that logistical command, that military-style execution, is the Buddhawajana Tipitaka 33 volumes.
33 volumes.
33. And think about the level of scholarly rigor and, more importantly, the editorial mandate required for this. This set exclusively compiles and translates only what he identifies as the Buddha's direct words, from Pali into Thai.
So 33 volumes dedicated solely to primary source material, as he defines it. That requires enormous manpower, cross-referencing, verification, and an absolutely ruthless editorial hand to make sure anything potentially derived from commentary is excised.
It's an exercise in purity and systemization on a grand scale.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture, why does this approach resonate so strongly right now?
Well, think about the era we live in. We're saturated with information, constantly looking for the verifiable source, the original data. In that context, this kind of textual fundamentalism can be extremely appealing.
It offers clarity, authority.
Exactly. It minimizes information overload by design. It presents itself as a clean signal in a very noisy world, which aligns perfectly, you could argue, with the modern learner's desire for deeply informed knowledge that cuts straight through the historical noise.
So he effectively provides an intellectual shortcut. Cut the historical clutter, go straight to the verifiable source, apply disciplined precision.
And apply that to your spiritual life. The very skills he honed, analyzing complex mechanical systems, logistical planning, political dynamics, now used to verify and disseminate spiritual instruction.
The disciplined mind seeking purity not just in practice, but in the instruction itself.
Precise.
Okay, but when you initiate a massive editorial effort like that, one that fundamentally questions the institutional value of, 2,000 years of traditional scholarship, you're inevitably going to create some friction.
Oh, absolutely, both legally and theologically. Phra Ajahn Kukrit's path certainly hasn't been immune to significant public scrutiny and, yes, controversy.
Right. Our source material acknowledges that there have been disputes, even lawsuits along his path, particularly surrounding some serious allegations regarding donation fraud.
That's true. And these challenges, while maybe uncomfortable to discuss, are a necessary part of understanding his public profile and the resistance he's faced.
However, just to be clear, in the spirit of impartial reporting, it's really paramount to note the specific legal outcome of those challengers.
Yes, the court ultimately dismissed the charges. The resolution confirmed definitively that, quote, no offense actually occurred. The Thai phrase is Kwam Fit Mi Dai Kot Queen Ching.
So that legal finding is the necessary context for viewing those past allegations.
Absolutely. But beyond those specific legal challenges, perhaps the most significant long-term friction lies more in the theological sphere, specifically regarding the institutional norms, the ritualistic practices of the wider Sangha, the monastic community in Thailand.
This is where his adherence to pure text directly clashes with accepted tradition.
Exactly. The core institutional dispute really centers on the Patimokkha.
Remind us what the Patimokkha is again?
It's the basic monastic code of rules.
Yeah.
It's part of the Vinaya, the disciplinary section of the canon, and it's recited communally by monks every fortnight, usually on the new moon and full moon days.
Okay. And the issue is?
The general Sangha in Thailand, this cuts across both the major Mahanikaya and the Dhammayuttika orders. They typically observe and recite 227 rules in the Patimokkha.
But Phra Ajahn Kukrit doesn't.
He and the Wat Nappapong community are criticized because they recite a version of the Patimokkha using only 150 rules.
150 versus 227. That's a big difference. That's 77 rules dropped.
It's not a minor administrative difference at all. It's a massive theological and institutional statement. It signifies that those 77 commonly accepted rules are, in his view, rejected as not being the direct, original utterance of the Buddha.
They must be derived, then, from the later Atthakatha, the commentaries he disavows.
Precisely. It's a direct application of his Buddhawajana principle to the very core of monastic discipline.
Let's just think about those 77 rules for a second. If he's rejecting later commentary, what kinds of rules might those commentaries have introduced over time that he now feels are, well, extraneous?
Well, based on how the Vinaya historically developed, those later rules often dealt with emerging issues of communal harmony, organizational management, practical adaptations to changing social circumstances, things that weren't necessarily issues during the Buddha's lifetime.
Like what, for example?
For instance, the full 227 rules often include more detailed regulations regarding the handling of money, which was controversial early on. or specific rules concerning, say, agricultural practices, or detailed definitions for relatively minor offenses that might have arisen regionally over time.
Rules about agriculture, handling donations, community management, those sound pretty important for the day-to-day running of a monastery and its interaction with lay society.
They certainly became important. The addition of rules throughout history was often an attempt by the Sangha to preserve its integrity as a communal vehicle in an evolving world, to maintain discipline and public trust.
So by reducing the code back to 150, he's aiming for doctrinal purity.
Yes, according to his interpretation.
But traditionalists would argue he's potentially stripping away essential ethical fences, the ones needed for institutional stability and navigating complex social relations. It must fundamentally change the structure and operation of his temple compared to others.
That's exactly the point of contention. It represents a very different model of monasticism.
And yet, despite this really high-stakes theological criticism and those public legal battles you mentioned, the source material clearly notes that the popularity of the Buddhawajana method hasn't decreased.
Quite the opposite, it seems. It continues to attract a significant and apparently growing following, both in Thailand and internationally.
Which really raises an important question, doesn't it? How do these challenges, the institutional resistance on one side versus the continued public support on the other, how do they reflect the current dynamics within Buddhism, maybe even globally?
It seems to highlight this fundamental tension, perhaps. A tension between institutional stability, which often requires adapting to cultural and historical realities, may be represented by the 227 rules.
And the modern appetite for original, supposedly unadulterated source material represented by the 150 rules.
It feels like people, or at least a significant number of them, are increasingly seeking authority directly in the primary text itself, rather than solely in the historical interpretation of that text.
They want the core instruction manual, maybe, not the extended director's cut with commentary tracks.
That's one way to put it. And we absolutely have to acknowledge that this narrative is still unfolding. The source material itself notes there's, quote, movement regarding the true stories and the ongoing legal and social scrutiny surrounding Phra Ajahn Kukrit.
It mentions a specific time frame.
Yes, specifically mentioning September 2568 BE, which corresponds to 2025 CE, as a time when further examination or developments might occur.
So as the sources say, time will tell how these deep institutional challenges ultimately resolve themselves.
Indeed. But regardless of future developments, the movement today is built on this unwavering foundation of textual rigor and arguably the kind of systems efficiency honed by a military mind.
So wrapping this up, what does this all mean for the contemporary Buddhist world, and maybe more importantly, for you, the listener, trying to make sense of it all?
Well, Phra Ajahn Kukrit Sotthiphalo continues his role as the abbot of Wat Nappapong. He remains a profoundly significant contemporary broadcaster of the Dharma, there's no denying that.
He successfully used modern media, that logistical command we talked about, to connect what he defines as the Buddha's direct words to a massive audience.
Both domestic and international, yes.
But he offers this unique value proposition, doesn't he? Especially for those perhaps feeling overwhelmed by information, seeking clarity.
A powerful, authoritative shortcut, you might call it, to deeply informed spiritual knowledge, rooted strictly in the primary text as he interprets it.
And delivered with the precise efficiency you might expect from a retired major.
His personal journey itself, from mechanical engineer to military major to ascetic monk, serves as a kind of powerful anecdote, doesn't it, on the power of focus.
He treated his spiritual calling like a mandatory project.
Applying his training in source verification, logistical execution, to the Tripitaka itself.
And that application of almost surgical rigor leads us to our final thought for you, the listener, to maybe explore on your own. Given this deep foundation on direct textual evidence and that very specific background in engineering and military discipline, how might this kind of rigid, text-focused approach influence future interpretations of Buddhism?
That's a great question. Will this trend towards verifiable primary sources, this kind of originalism, eventually destabilize the reliance on traditional institutions and their centuries of commentaries, maybe not just in Thailand, but globally?
And furthermore, let's circle back to the Padamokka, that monastic code.
Okay.
We know Phra Ajahn Kukrit rejects 77 rules he believes are derived from later commentary. This raises a really fundamental question about the nature of ethical codes, doesn't it?
It does. What purpose do those rules serve?
Exactly. What specific difference do you, the listener, think those 77 extra rules rules often pertaining to social context, minor infractions, communal management. What might they represent?
Are they essential ethical fences, crucial guardrails that protect the community and ensure stability? Or are they, from another perspective, historical clutter, maybe obscuring the Buddha's original, perhaps simpler path?
It's a question that really defines a major ideological split in Buddhism today, it seems.
It really does.
Thank you for joining us for this intense deep dive into Buddhawajana and the really complex life of Phra Ajahn Kukrit.
It's been fascinating to unpack.
We'll see you next time on the Deep Dive.